I'm Mike, and welcome to Retro Boost. Today's topic, the mythical, the legendary, the 1-chip SNES. What is the 1-chip? What makes it different from a non-1-chip? Is there a performance difference? What's going on here? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So I've known about the 1-chip SNES for a while, but I've never really been able to fully appreciate what makes it different until I saw it for myself. So I'm going to be sharing that experience with you all today. We'll also be going into like those first other questions as well. We're going to talk about what is a 1-chip SNES, how you can differentiate it from a 2-chip, how you identify that it is indeed a 1-chip, and then we'll go into examples of the two different types of consoles side by side. I'll be using screenshots as well as gameplay footage to show those differences. And I'll be using a RetroTINK 5X Pro as the means that these are being captured, both the same way, same settings, same cabling for each example, so we'll really be able to focus in on what the hardware differences make or break with that experience. We'll be using HD Retrovision component cables and also Retro Gaming Cables universal Nintendo SCART cables. So we'll do component examples, SCART examples, to really kind of show off all the different possibilities there with the Super Nintendo and RetroTINK kind of at max performance to get an idea of what you can really get from this console. So it's going to be cool. Thanks everyone who is watching and those who have subscribed. The channel is about to pass 900 subscribers. It'll probably happen as I'm editing this video later today. So huge. Thank you so much for the support. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to continue helping the channel grow. It's really cool. I do sincerely thank everyone who watches though, regardless of whether or not you subscribe. It's great to have you here. Hope you learned something. Hope it's informative. I find this stuff so genuinely cool and I love sharing it and presenting it to the world. Giving my opinions and learning things from the audience as I get comments and get pointed in new directions on things to try. It's a great two-way relationship here. I love it. Also, check out the Discord server, links in the description. A lot of content for the channel goes up there earlier, as well as discussions and cool things about gaming, retro technology, enhancement, movies, TV shows, stupid memes, all kinds of fun stuff. If you remember the Discord server, this video is going to be no surprise to you because I've been talking about the 1-chip SNES, and a lot of the screenshots we'll be showing today are already in the Discord server, so it's a cool place to talk about things that are relevant to the channel. With all that said, now let's get into it. Let's first discuss what's the big deal with the 1-chip SNES. So we can see we've got two Super Nintendos here. They look pretty much identical, age and wear and tear aside, but one is different than the other. One of these is the 1-chip. Now, what is that really referring to? Well, obviously I'm not like an engineer, so I'm not going to be able to go into like the hyper specifics, but basically in short, the 1-chip SNES was a later revision of the Super Nintendo that consolidated some of the innards into a more efficient setup, allowing for it to have better quality of video output, better brightness, better sharpness, things like that. So you can kind of think of it like the Super Nintendo equivalent of like when the Xbox One X or PS4 Pro came out. It wasn't like a true next-gen console, but it was something that had notably better performance than the other model available at the same time, the Xbox One, the PS4. So it's sort of like that, not as dramatic because those consoles allowed for like, 4K output. This is still the same resolutions, but the image itself is cleaned up. So, just to jump right into it, here's a few screenshots here of like Super Punch-Out and some other ones that I'll show. And what you really want to look at is like the kind of the HUD elements or some of the like shapes, the text. You can see how the 1-chip SNES has sharper, more defined edges and overall a clearer image. It does a way better job with those HUD elements and text and things like that, but it's also like brighter, more vivid. Everything about it is better. I think one of the most interesting examples that really kind of drives home how it handles some of these things better is looking at a screenshot of the start screen from A Link to the Past. When you're looking at the text, the Legend of Zelda portion, the gray kind of silver accent that the text has, you can see how the 1-chip has that more clearly defined and it has like the proper gradient kind of sheen to it that it's intended to have. Whereas the 2-chip SNES tends to like kind of have like a little more fuzziness to it. Things kind of have like an after image outline, or those same like text elements aren't as clear or clean. They have more pixelation, more dots and lines inside them when you directly compare them. Now the funny thing is, you know, you get like a non 1-chip SNES and you combine it with, you know, HD RetroVision component cables, or like a Rad 2X or the 5X Pro, or even just the 2X Pro with component cables. I mean, it looks outstanding. So it's all going to be a win when you combine it with the right products. But we can see how the 1-chip kind of takes it another step forward by adding more clarity, more sharpness, and more appealing color overall. So there is a difference, and I hope that it's surviving as I upload this video, because it's really obvious playing it, you know, on a TV right in front of you, and even in my capture footage. But YouTube's compression is always going to take something away. So I hope that it's surviving to a point that it can be seen and appreciated here. Now, let's pivot back to the consoles themselves again. How is it that you determine you have a 1-chip SNES? Well, there's basically 3 steps. I'm going to do 2 out of the 3 and kind of substitute the third one for an alternative step, which is the fact that I've already compared them. So, clue number 1, the serial numbers. It seems that the bulk of all 1-chip NESs have serial numbers starting with UN3. Although not definitive, this is your first clue that what you're looking at is probably going to be a 1-chip SNES. But if you really want to be sure, the only way is to open up the console, which to me was like simultaneously cool and very scary. I've never done this before. This is my first foray into modding consoles. Not even modding the console, but this is my first time ever opening up one of my game consoles. So I was a little nervous doing it. So to open up a Super Nintendo, though, you need to have a game tool. The screws are like inverted in the sense that, you know, a screwdriver has a point to it, and you're sticking it into the screw and then spinning and driving it. These game screws are the opposite. The screw itself has an elevated surface, and the tool grips it, so it's backwards. For that reason, most people probably don't have a game tool lying around. So I ordered mine online. They're not expensive. They're pretty cheap. But get yourself a game tool. I think it's a 4.5mm game tool is the specific one. I'll link the one that I bought in the description below to help guide you to the right tool. So get your game tool and start unscrewing the bottom screws on the console. Once you get them all out, you are then able to, without really any resistance, lift the top half of the Super Nintendo off. You got to be careful that the controller ports don't get like kind of pulled with it, because depending how you lift it, you might come off really clean, or it might kind of grip, and you know, I could feel the controller ports like tugging at first, and I really wanted to be careful. So with the area exposed, after cleaning it up some, because boy was this thing filled with the age of the 90s. After doing some cleaning and getting a good look at it, the next way that you determine you have a 1-chip SNES is to seek out the little imprint on the board that says as such. And at that point, I was satisfied. Between already having compared them on capture footage, the serial number being a UN3, and now I'm seeing the 1-chip label on the board, at that point I was satisfied that I had a 1-chip SNES. You could keep going, and I'll be completely honest, I wanted to stop there. I didn't want to fly too close to the sun on my first time opening up and digging into a game console, especially one that I just bought that particular day, and it's not exactly cheap. I wouldn't want to break it. So, however, you could unscrew the shielding over the board, and that would reveal the final piece that labels the 1-chip model number like in greater text. But I'm satisfied with how far I've taken it. Don't want to risk anything right now. I'll go back and I'm probably going to mess with the other SNES I've got now, as far as making that a potential test subject for maybe practicing soldering or things like that. That's kind of my idea that I have right now. So that is, in short, how you verify you have a one-chip console for real. So there we go. We've identified it. I've already shown the screenshots. What I'm going to do now is let's see it in action with live gameplay. Again, with the gameplay, the one chip has that clarity advantage. It has that brighter popping color. But pay attention to the HUD stuff, the HUD elements, UI interface type stuff, like the weapons and items on Super Metroid, or the punch out super punch meter, the arrows on the bottom, Legend of Zelda's title screen. Those are the moments where you can really kind of see very definitively what the differences are. But overall, the one chip NES, it's a big performance jump. Again, I hope that enough of this is surviving against YouTube's compression. It's always the challenge. But now let's check it out. So, like I said in the beginning, RetroTINK 5X Pro. We're going to do component examples. We're going to do an RGB SCART example. Different resolutions as well. We'll do 1080p over with Super Nintendo sampling. We'll also do a punch-out example with it just being the default settings for the 5X Pro, 1080p fill, generic 4x3. Just kind of get a taste of what everything's got going on here. And for the HD Retrovision component cables, these will be bright setting comparisons. Now, let's get into it, and then we'll kind of summarize at the end. Okay, so hope that was all helpful. Like I said, it's hard to predict what's going to be really visible after it uploads as far as seeing a lot of differences. It's been an interesting journey to really understand what YouTube's compression will or won't do to a video. I think the funniest example of that is the Porta comparison video I did with the 5X Pro and the 2X Pro, talking about like these lines of distortion that the Porsche had on 480p sources, and I'm talking about it in the video, but then when it went to YouTube, it just wasn't there at all. So it was like I was crazy or something. I had to take a screenshot, put it in a Google Drive doc, and link it in the video, and then people were like, oh, that's either what I was talking about, or, oh, now I get it, now I see it, okay, makes sense. It was really interesting. So I hope that this was helpful, seeing the gameplay side by side. That's why I wanted to do the screenshots earlier, because I know that the screenshots will be a little easier to take in some stuff and zoom in on than the gameplay could be. But hope that the differences shine through. The 1-chip SNES, I can see why it's so desired. It's really awesome. I've known about it for a while, but like I didn't really have a full grasp on how much better it could be until really seeing it with my own eyes. I was really surprised. I plugged it in. I was kind of scared. Like, what if it's not that much better? This is kind of expensive, but like the power supply on my old one's starting to kind of get, not the power supply, the power like input like has a broken part, so it's really hard to get it to stay turned on unless the plug is positioned very specifically. So it was like I needed to replace it. But I'm like, oh man, what if it was a waste of money? It wasn't exactly cheap. So I was relieved and then very impressed when I was first messing around with it. It was very clean looking. I've said before on the channel that like some of this stuff, you combine like better cables with like the 5X Pro out of these consoles, and it looks so good you could think it's emulation. That has never been more true for me than the 1-chip SNES and like the 5X Pro and these component cables. It's awesome. Whether you're using HD Retrovision or like SCART cabling from places like Retro Gaming Cables, you combine that with either one of these, a regular or the 1-chip. It's a great experience, but I can see now why the 1-chip is so sought after. It is legitimately a big step up. It's really impressive. So, hope this was helpful and informative. It's a really cool topic, one that I was really eager to explore once I got my hands on the console. So, hope this was helpful in showing off the differences. Thanks so much for joining me today. Other stuff going on the channel. We're doing live streams now, typically on Saturdays toward the evening. I've been live streaming. It's been very fun. I've been meaning to do that for like literally years, and finally started doing it kind of recently. Currently Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door with the double pane badge equipped, so basically it's like hard mode. But now that I got the 1-chip SNES, I think I might start alternating between that and some Super Nintendo stuff, because I'm looking to play more Super Nintendo now, for sure. It's really cool. Feel free to subscribe, help keep the channel growing. Hopefully we're past 900 subs by now. It's a big milestone, and I really appreciate everyone watching. And feel free to join the Discord server as well. You get content early. Tons of videos are currently in the early access section of the Discord server. So there's that going on. We've also got tons of places in there talking about movies, TV show, gaming. I was talking about this topic a lot prior to doing this video in there, so it's really cool. It's a great information exchange. In fact, the topic of the next video I'm doing, which is 8BitDo controllers, specifically the Pro 2 controller by 8BitDo, I got that idea from someone in the Discord server, so it's already really working out as a great information exchange place. So, with all that said, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of your day.